particular case. out a diagram and spreadsheet. Matt wants to speak. We have one speaker. On a first name basis with our public speaker.
All right, let us go back and resume our discussion. We have now had the opportunity to interview our 12 semifinalists. We're going to open with a period of public comment. I understand Dr. Corrigan would like to speak.
Thank you, Kevin. And I didn't think we could go through a meeting without me coming up, so we have to do on this one. So I appreciate it. I know it's been a long 2 days. I want to thank the trustees, and I also want to thank the trustees who've come and watched. You know, I've learned a lot by the time I've been here. Haven't been here the entire time. I want to thank my faculty colleagues as well. I know it's been a long couple of days. My classes were, you know, willing for me to leave so we wouldn't have to take the test. We didn't do that. So that's, I haven't seen all the candidates. I don't think it's fair really to comment on an individual candidate, but I would like to just give some thoughts about questions that you can ask as you're getting down to the 4 and as you expand the group to the entire board. Hearing what they had to say was a lot of what they've done. And that's natural, and that's a natural part of the process. But you know, to me, the important question is, what are they going to do if they come here? And what are they going to do in this environment? And so as you move forward, you know, I think Judy's question about research is really critical. In a comprehensive university, that's a challenge, but we're not in the middle of the panhandle. We're in a place where there's over 1 million people. And so how we increase our research profile and how we increase our graduate offerings, I think is really important, and I hope you take that under consideration. Also, this idea of enrollment. Numbers matter, and so I'd like to know what the incoming president thinks of our enrollment profile and what kind of number are they thinking about. Because in 5 years, if we're 20,000, that's one type of university. If we're 30,000, that's a much different type of university and has impacts on class size and metrics, et cetera. So I'd like to know their views on that. And finally, and I know you'll get to it, but the next provost will hire, or excuse me, the next president will hire a provost. And I want to know what they think and what kind of profile they're looking for in a provost, because I think that will tell you a lot about their views of the academic mission of the university. So I think that's really important. And then finally, you know, a question that I'd like to ask the incoming, the presidential candidates, in 5 or 6 years, how would you like a UNF graduate to be described? What type of individuals do you want graduating from this university? Because I think that will tell you a lot about the type of university they want. Again, I want to thank you for doing this. This has been a long couple of days, and I know you've been at it beyond that as well. So from a faculty member, I just want to say thank you.
And Matt, thank you. You joked about being here. You have been here at many of these, and we appreciate your interest and comments. Very much so. All right, let's just recap what our responsibility is now as a search committee is to reduce our number of semifinalists down to a panel of finalists, ideally 4, for consideration next week by the Board of Trustees. We will do that, and once we have done that, officially the work of this search committee will be over. However, I would hope that all of you will remain involved as we continue to go through this process, whether it's in meeting with our candidates when they're on campus or other opportunities. Of course, we'll be meeting next week in public meetings and a chance to spend more time with folks. Yesterday, and Lori, tell me how you'd like to conduct this, but we had a discussion of the candidates we spoke about yesterday. There seemed to be clear consensus around consideration, further consideration, not final determination by all means, but of two individuals yesterday, David Szymanski and John Flores. Tell me if I am wrong in that assessment, but that seemed to be my sense of the conversation of yesterday.
Does that eliminate the rest of it from yesterday?
No, it doesn't, Ann. I think I think there was ample discussion about John and David. No, at this point, we are looking at the entire pool of the 12 to finalize our list of 4.
And Kevin, for consistency purposes, you need to do exactly what you did yesterday.
Okay, so
the order in which you came today, before you make any decisions as a whole, and talk about the exact same thing you did yesterday. Talk about each candidate, what your results were, and then at the end of that deliberation, at the end of that conversation, and then you'll see where you are. And my recommendation would to take approach very similar to what you did last week, and that after that conversation, if someone would like to advocate to invite someone for a campus visit, and see if there's a consensus from that standpoint, and we'll see where we go, with the ultimate goal of 4 individuals potentially being brought to campus. But for consistency purposes, let's go through the list the same way you did yesterday.
okay, we'll do that. And just since this is being live streamed, everyone make sure your mic is on and be close to the mic as we talk. First candidate we spoke to this morning was Kevin Carmen, Executive VP and Provost at University of Nevada. Any comments regarding Kevin? Karen? Or?
Yes, I was not disappointed at all in meeting Kevin. I thought he was well qualified on paper. Certainly has a strong academic background. I think he would fit the profile in terms of what Matt just talked about with having been a provost, is a provost, so would understand what that would mean. He didn't seem to, when he started, he talked about not presuming to be the best candidate, but and he ended on that note. I like some of his thoughts, especially around thinking about students learning differently. His focus on student success and some of the things that he has done. The idea that this process is challenging, so we, in terms of student success, diversity, it's not, there's no easy fix, but certainly based on his background, he has done a lot of work. I thought his answer to number 3 relating to the BOT and engagement in terms of some of the things that he has done, I thought he was speaking from experience, and that made sense to me. His answer on shared governance, also looking at faculty and that process as an essential element and a valuable component for success. His answers on diversity. I mean, I think I could go on strategic planning and the metrics and the associated metrics with that. So he's one that I really do think that I would be interested in seeing more.
All right. Other comments about Wendy?
I would echo that. I thought he was a very strong candidate. I did like that he was a provost, but also that he had, I think he described himself as sort of a second hand or something like that to the president. It almost sounded like, and I think he even mentioned he was sort of being groomed in the event something happened to the president that he could step in. And so I think given that experience, he's had an opportunity to see as much of the external facing, more so than a lot of provosts would have, since typically the provost is internal facing. So I thought he did bring a lot of depth and a lot of great experience to the table. I was very, very, very favorably impressed.
All right. Bella?
I was really impressed with him as well, not to be redundant with what Karen already said, but I think he alluded to and kind of fit what we see the identity of UNF kind of becoming, and was in line with that. He kind of alluded to his work on and proven commitment to the issues of diversity and inclusion, environmental stewardship, and then also that student focus. And on the issue of students, I could be biased, obviously, in this, but I was really impressed with his answer to the question that I asked regarding financially needy students, and the realization that students were, pardon me, the students that don't receive Pell Grants could also need financial aid and assistance. So I think that his answer to that question took it to another level.
Good. Andres and then Judy.
I agree pretty much with what's been said. I was also impressed with the fact that he also demonstrated interest in environmental stewardship. He answered the questions with specific examples that demonstrate depth of experience and knowledge. And that was very good. I also think that I liked the response in terms of research that he basically stated that we need to have a better sense of our role, our capacity, and how to balance that. And that showed that he really does look to assess before he pretty much gives answers for certain things.
Very good. Andres?
Yeah, I would, just to repeat what Judy said, I like that when he answered questions, you can tell that he knew what he was talking about, and he was very, very straightforward on the way that he addressed all our questions, and I think that was very, very professional. And I think he will be a great fit.
Right. Sharon?
Ditto to everyone. I was also really impressed with the economic development that he was involved in. I mean, to do economic development in Reno, which is in the middle of nowhere, he doesn't have a lot of cities around there, and to be working with Tesla and going outside of Nevada even to bring things into the institution to do economic development, to me was very impressive.
All right. Any other comments? Ron?
Just one quick one to echo what Judy said about research. I felt that his answer was very context sensitive, that he himself comes from flagships, but was cautious about understanding what UNF is, what UNF wants to be. He had read the scholarship statement and kind of wanted to take us to where we wanted to be and knew how to do that from his experience.
All right.
I thought his respective research was good. He thought research meant enrichment for students, bringing it back to students. I thought he presented very well a balance in terms of the provost, the scholarship side, as well as some of his comments in terms of administration. He was high enough in a number of organizations to have broad scope of the university and the responsibilities that a president might have. I really liked his identification of we will see different students today and in the future, and we need to recognize that we've got to change our teaching techniques to meet the diversity. And I don't think I heard that anyplace else through the last couple of days.
All right. All right. Irma Becerra? Who would... Any comments?
I'll say I thought Irma was, I had wrote sort of a summary, student and program focused. So I think she's demonstrated in the conversation a good focus on programs and on students and student success, and sort of listed a number of activities. But that was sort of a quick high-level summary. I thought there was an extreme focus in those categories. Good understanding, good communication programs through her experience, and focus on students.
I think her engineering background also helped her understand and focus on the metrics and what it takes to get, understood the metrics, how you get there, and I think even how they can be, I don't know, how you can misinterpret or interpret them in different ways. And I think that she did understand, I thought, very well how the metrics work, and did have an understanding of Florida, having been at 2 institutions in Florida and 1 in a public institution for a very long time.
I would just add, with regard to her, the fact that she has been in the state university system at a fairly high level, and my sense is would have a number of contacts already within the system. We've been very blessed to have someone like John, who's been in it for so long, everybody knows him. She would not have that level of contacts, but I think would have a level of contacts that would allow her to hit the ground running to some degree. Other comments about Irma? Rhonda?
I would echo one of the things that Paul said, which was that she seemed to have really done the work on financially needy students and a wide variety of programs to support them. And that was really compelling to me. I mean, she seemed like she was the one who had thought through a lot of that stuff and laid it out. I'm not an economic development expert by any means, but some of the activities that she described about working with the venture capital firms and things like that sounded to me like external economic development and bringing the conference together. That was a value as well.
Judy?
There was one thing she said that I think we could take away, and that was that she said experiences are a value chain, and we all need to be a part of that. And I thought that was very insightful in terms of how you enrich the entire student experience.
All right. Right, Dr. Lee, Yi Lee? Paul?
I thought he was exceptionally talented and intelligent and knowledgeable, and I felt as though I could walk out of here with a certificate and an MBA in higher ed. I mean, he presented information and challenges and activities in a way. So he did talk about, change agent as well. I think with some of the other candidates, when we sort of balance in terms of just overall fit, that might be one challenge for us, I think, going forward.
Yeah, or Ann?
I had the same impression of him. I wrote down that he answers questions like he's giving a talk. I felt like, but I found him fascinating. Not sure he's the right fit for us, but I found him really fascinating.
Bella?
I think you did an exceptional job of making sure he hit every single part of our multi-point questions and answering them thoughtfully. And again, I'm probably biased since I'm the student representative, but while other candidates that we interviewed today are semifinalists mentioned students sometimes when the question of shared governance came up, he was the only one who I think viewed students as more than people that are being administered to, but also as the word he used was co-creators in their academic experience, and I really appreciated that.
Great, thanks. Kelly Brown?
I thought Kelly was very good on detail. She was detail-oriented and certainly had a good energy about her.
I wanted to ask Lori, or somebody knows her background. She had that brief interim position at Valdosta State. She referenced a whole lot of stuff she did in the 6 months she was there. And then she came from Georgia College, went to Valdosta State for 6 months, and then went back to Georgia College, if I read that right. Any comments on what happened there and why that change?
Sure. They had a presidential change, and so is the university. That worked. And so the University System of Georgia, oftentimes they will move an individual from one campus to be the interim at another campus, and then they go back to their home institutions from that perspective. And so that's why that happened there. She did accomplish a great deal in 6 months there, but all accounts is that's what she accomplished while she was there from that perspective.
Okay, thank you.
I thought Kelly was not only extremely well prepared, but engaging and articulate as to her vision. She was extremely detailed, seemed very enthusiastic about this opportunity. Karen?
I agree, Kevin. I also thought she really presented the retention, progression, and graduation in a unique way, and asked us to look at it as a complete total package versus the individual items that we usually view these metrics to be. And she was extremely well prepared, very personable, and someone I think we could relate to.
All right, Andres?
Yes, if I can say, I think that I like when she told her story, her background, and I think that she can really understand a lot of our students from her own experience through higher education. And that is something that seems to be very valuable because that informs her decision-making and the way that she works. And she looks to me like a person that is not afraid of challenges. There is something present to her she wants to tackle it. And one thing that is very interesting, where the place where she is right now, she mentioned having to deal with bigger universities in the state, like UGA, you know, and that's not very different than some of the challenges that we have at UNF, having to deal with bigger sisters in the state. And that kind of experience can be something that is transferable to this position.
All right. Rhonda Phillips.
I'd like to speak to Rhonda. I felt that she, as you could tell from my question, I feel very confident with her experiences at two of the finest public universities, Purdue and ASU, and her answers to the question about size and scope and the complexity therein. I really felt that those two, her life at both of those universities had taught her to deal with that, and not only that, but her previous experience. I liked her talk about her comments about economic development. She came from there, and she brought that to the academy, and she likes the idea of integrating the academic with economic development. She certainly is an academic, a teacher, but I think she shows great leadership skills, and as I say, she certainly was tutored by two of the best.
Other comments? Bella?
To me, a lot of her answers were very thoughtful, and thinking back on her, she definitely had that kind of go-getter attitude and energy about her. I also really liked her answer to the last question that Anne asked in regards to kind of getting to the ethics and honesty, and I really appreciated her answer and kind of her bravery in that situation. And across the surveys that when we surveyed all the different constituent groups, that was the thing that was identified as being the most important across the board.
Mac?
Yes, I was very impressed with her external partnerships in economic development. Obviously, I think she is the only candidate that I love fundraising. I know Ann picked right up on that. But I think she has really strong credentials, too. She's come out of 3 major universities, has a nice connection with North Florida, having been at UF, has a home in Amelia Island, so she's obviously kept in touch with the area. I think that's important. And probably one of the most striking things is she's a real innovator. She's a marketer and an innovator. She's not afraid to challenge the system. But a calculated risk taker. I mean, she used those words. You know, she's not just a gunslinger, but she really calculates what she wants to do, but she's not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, I would say that when I reviewed her materials, what jumped out to me, and no secret that I believe economic development's a key issue here, what she said expanded, we needed, yeah, what she said today in explaining those economic development activities, I thought really brought to life the materials. So I was very favorably impressed with her. Mac's point about her contact with Northeast Florida is good. She has maintained a tie here. To Ann's point about very fine institutions where she was selected to start the honors college at 2 institutions, I think speaks well of her experiences there. So I was very favorably impressed. Andres and Judy?
Yes, I like of her, her background in economic development and fundraising. I mean, in all her questions, or her answers to her questions, she was always going back to inform, you know, her previous experience in those areas to draw from there. And I think that she has a real passion for those 2 issues. And I think those will fit very well with our community.
Right. All right, Judy?
I agree that I like the fact that she's highly entrepreneurial. One thing that I particularly liked in relationship to a question we had, I think it was 8A about students, that she said something about promoting global community engagement, and that was different than the context in which others had talked about community engagement.
Before we go to the last candidate, Governor Link has to leave to catch a plane. And so, Wendy, any final comments you'd like to make?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thanks. All right, Roger Thompson? Comments about Roger? Appearing by video? Andres?
I like him. I think he's very charismatic. You know, it's difficult to be charismatic through a screen, you know, thousands of miles away, but he was. I mean, he was very charismatic, and I think that he gave very thoughtful answers, and he's very passionate about the work that he does, and he has a great experience. I really think that he will be a very good fit.
Okay. Others?
I would agree. I thought it was really hard. I think it is hard, and I think he did a great job of conveying enthusiasm and sincerity through the TV, and I don't think it's easy to do. He did seem to have great experience. I also felt like he acknowledged where he didn't have as much experience, and acknowledged that, but indicated how he would address that. So I was very impressed with Mr. Thompson, or Dr. Thompson.
Other comments, Judy?
I think he said three things that, in my mind, give you a sense of how he works. He said, don't confuse activity with achievement. Mm-hmm. He also said, the president is always a recruiter. And he said, integrity is learned every day. And I think those are three things that give you a sense of how he would work.
Mm-hmm. Sharon?
I liked him too. I think he spoke to his role as a leader. He talked a lot about his leadership style and how he would build teams, which is really important, and he tied that into shared governance. I was impressed by his discussion of diversity and inclusion, because sometimes it can sound like an alternative to affirmative action. But when he talked about socioeconomic diversity, for example, and going and getting the person from Alabama who was rejected at the beginning by Governor Wallace and bringing her into the conversation to give him the context and the learning that he didn't have, I mean, that's impressive. And to build a diversity program around that was really important to me. And he also talked about performance, and I noted activity is different than achievement, so yeah.
All right. With that having been said, any further comments about any of the candidates that we saw today? All right, Lori, I will take your lead. We now have had a discussion with our entire pool, and we can now move forward. So what would you suggest, Lori?
Again, I would suggest that you take this from a point, from not a vote, but let's get to a consensus as to those 4 individuals that you would like to bring back to campus. 4 is a little bit of a magic number. I don't think there is, any rhyme or reason other than our experience. So if you have 4, 1 withdraws, you still have 3. That's a very good option to be in. You don't want to narrow the pool too small and then be able to be in a position to have some really good candidates, but not enough of them to meet some of the standards. So I think that's an important piece. But my recommendation here would be, again, to do very similar to what you did last week and be in a position to advocate to elevate someone in for the next round of interviews. So the same way you led it, Kevin, last week would be my recommendation this time.
All right. Would someone like to suggest a first name? Mac?
I would like to suggest David Szymanski. I don't know if you want to comment with that, or you just want to. You want me to follow that up with a reason, or just
no?
Throw the name
I mean, certainly can offer reasons. I would support that recommendation.
I would support it.
Is everyone comfortable elevating David Szymanski? All right. Would someone like to suggest another name? Ann, and then we'll just go down the list.
To suggest John Flores.
Okay. John Flores, who we spoke about yesterday, Dean at K-State.
I support that.
All right, other comments about John? So I had Sharon and Ann and Karen and Mac. All right. Okay, and any further conversation about John Flores at this point? Then Ann, Charles Robinson. Charles had the advantage or disadvantage of being very first. Yesterday. Seems like eons ago. Other discussions about Charles? I mean, certainly a great deal of energy and really enjoyed. I could see Charles fitting in very well here. I wonder whether the provost might be a better position initially, but I certainly liked him.
Right. I would agree with that assessment.
Right, yeah.
Well, we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't.
But because in case my Uber does come in, I would also recommend Kevin Carmen.
Okay, from the University of Nevada, Reno. I would agree with that. Okay. It appears that we have fairly strong consensus on Kevin. Okay. Rhonda Phillips. Ann suggests Rhonda Phillips. I would definitely support that. Others?
Is Roger Thompson on your list yet?
No.
Okay, I would also recommend him.
Okay. Well, so right now we have seemingly good consensus on Szymanski, Kevin Carmen, and Rhonda Phillips. And then we have Roger Thompson. Flores, we had, I'm not sure we had, remember like what we did last week, we had kind of the middle column to come back and be further discussed. My sense was he might be more in that range.
I would put him in that discussion range.
Let's show another group of hands.
Okay, we need our big board here like we had last week. Okay, is everyone comfortable with David Szymanski? Yes. All right, yes. Let's put that name on the board. And then by order by which they were discussed, SZYMANSKI. Let's have a discussion about John Flores. And remember, we're not making a final determination right now, but I had 5 people spoke in favor of John or indicated support for John. Okay.
Okay, he's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I thought John.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Hi, are you out front?
4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we have 5 for Mr. Flores. Flores, I need Willie here to help me. Karen, at this point, can we just indicate 5 indications of support for John? All right. Next, we discussed Charles Robinson and suggested him. I think this might be better situated. Are we comfortable not further elevating Charles at this point?
I have a question about the way we're doing the list. Is there any way we could just do it in columns like how we did last week, rather than having a number next to their name? Thank you.
The columns, rather. Yeah. Okay. Did you get the numbers, Wendy? Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your coming for 2 days. Appreciate it. There we go. Okay. So left-hand column is elevated. Right-hand column would be for further discussion. Charles Robinson, would we be comfortable going in the right-hand column? Yes. Okay. Okay. Next, we discuss Kevin Carmen. Left or right? Looks to be left-hand side. Okay. Oh. Okay. Next, we discussed Rhonda Phillips. Okay, left-hand column? Yes. All right, Rhonda Phillips in the left-hand column. Next we had, next we had Roger Thompson. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, looks like he at this point would go into the left-hand column. I'm sorry, the right-hand column. Right, and remembering that we had folks yesterday too, is there anyone else that you would like to move to the board for further discussion? We have 6 right now of our 12. Debbie?
I'd like to.
From across the board. Across the board. Debbie?
I'd like to recommend Dr. Lee.
Dr. Lee, okay.
Joining the meeting. Wendy Lee.
Okay. Wendy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Okay. It was just recommended that Dr. Lee. Would anyone else like to have a discussion about Dr. Lee? Okay, Bella? Okay. All right. Any other?
Kelly Brown.
Okay, Kelly Brown? From Georgia. Any further discussion or show of that? Okay. Anyone else that you would like to discuss at this point? Okay, so what we have is on the right hand or the left hand column of those who have been were comfortable elevating. Here would be David Szymanski, Kevin Carmen, and Rhonda Phillips. Then remaining for further discussion, we have John Flores, Charles Robinson, Roger Thompson, Yi Lee, and Kelly Brown. And are we comfortable that we're not, we're now going to be discussing the right-hand side of the column, all right? So the floor is open for discussion.
So are we looking for one additional candidate here?
Yeah, I would feel most comfortable of going to 4, just in the event that someone withdraws and the board would still have a choice.
But 5 is not an option. I'm just asking.
Yeah. It's.
Kevin,
Yeah, Wendy.
Are you looking for a recommendation from that group for discussion purposes?
Yes. And the point Rad just made is.
I guess I thought Roger Thompson was very strong, and I say particularly, I did think he had some good ties to Florida, or at least Southeast, and again, I did feel like he was a good fit, and I was particularly impressed that he came across as well as he did, even through Skype. So I thought of those that are remaining, I thought he was very strong.
Rad, give us your thoughts. Are you struggling between a couple?
Yeah, so I really was impressed with with Roger's presentation. Just would like to hear from the faculty. I mean, I'm just concerned about his involvement more on the academic affairs side of university, and whether you all think the faculty would get comfortable with that person relative to, 3 other candidates with, much stronger academic backgrounds.
Judy?
I actually liked him also very much. I think it's hard to show charisma on television, and he did. He is VP for Student Services and Enrollment, and so that gave me a sense that he has that operational piece that I look for. But he also seemed inspirational, so I try to look for both. So that's why I.
Karen.
Karen?
I like him as well, but I do think that the academic credentials and understanding the academic side of the house, I think could be improved. And so, to be perfectly frank, I don't think that the faculty would be as much in favor of Thompson as another candidate.
Okay. And yeah. Rana?
I would echo what Karen has said in that situation, that a lot of strengths were presented and a lot of on-the-ground experiences with students. I think the depth of understanding the academic endeavor, that other candidates had some strengths there, and that the faculty would pick up on that immediately.
Anders?
Yeah, I think that, just to echo what we said, it goes back to our question number 3, I think it is, your question. The university is a complex institution, and there are many different constituencies. And when I look at the candidates, hopefully I try to make a picture of what is the person that can, there is a more complete package in terms of understanding all the different parts of the university. And I think that I will be comfortable with him for what he said about the university as a whole.
One thought that I've had as we've gone through this is when we go back to last summer and we're writing the job description, I think it was purposefully written very broad. We started kind of with a debate of the traditional versus non-traditional candidate. If we had remaining on the right-hand side someone that would represent non-traditional, albeit in an academic setting, we do not have a true non-traditional candidate. That I think that Roger would represent, I would call it a hybrid candidate in the sense he clearly, and he had acknowledged he is not from the same side of the academy as others. I was particularly impressed, though, to your point, Andres, when he talked about the size and scope of the operation he runs is very similar to our own budget. And so I would be comfortable that he can deal with the complexity of the issues and recognize that he is not an academic in the same way as certainly the two deans and the provosts that we already have identified on the left-hand side.
Your point is well taken, though. It gives us a balance that we were looking for in the beginning. I mean, balanced among the four candidate choices.
I just wanted to comment about that. I think we should still look for what we think or who we think are the four best candidates, not to try to find balance.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Wendy.
I felt, and I don't know if I can say something about somebody else, but absolutely. I thought Dr. Flores really was the whole picture. I thought he had a real depth and breadth of experience, and definitely had the research background, the ties with the faculty. I thought he understood faculty issues, student issues, and I thought he was very active in the community and very entrepreneurial in a way. So my biggest concern with him was that he seemed so serious, but I had a feeling he was actually very nervous, and that given time to relax, he would be much warmer and more comfortable. So,
and to your point, Ann, the day and a half that the candidate will be with us on campus, meeting a whole lot of different constituency groups, I think their personality will be able to be shown more so than a 75-minute interview where they're sitting in the middle of a room facing us. Bella?
Well, how about Red's point? Can we invite 5?
Yeah. I mean, Lori, let's talk through that. I mean, I worry about the logistics of it. Candidly, I worry about, we're worried about withdrawals, and if I'm one of 5, I think I have less likely chance if I'm one of 4, and so maybe I'm completely wrong in that. Bella?
Okay. What I would say to you, I always say more than less, right, because of the withdrawal factor that happens in any search. Is it a logistical, much more of a logistical nightmare? Yes, it is. I mean, so that's just the reality of it, is getting candidates here fast and quickly, and they all know the dates and those types of things, but just making the puzzle pieces work become a little more complicated from that perspective. But again, I think to the point of there are steps in this process that you're supposed to take, right, and what you see here today may be very different when you see individuals on campus for a day and a half at all of those different venues. And so is it logistically more difficult? Yes. Is it undoable? No.
So I'm kind of looking at those two candidates in terms of Thompson. I understand certainly the concern from the faculty side, but I think recognize a little bit the first job up is going to be to get a strong provost too, and so we've got a little balancing there in terms of having a strong team. I'm not sure that we maybe have one, maybe two that have sort of that joint strength in terms of from the academy and the administration. I think that Carmen and maybe Flores would be the two that would have that dual strength for the position of presidency. So I kind of like maybe the idea of those two and have the 5. It's going from 4 to 5. It gives you a little protection in the event that one can't come.
So Paul, if we were to go to 5, you would add Flores and Thompson?
Yes, and Thompson.
Okay. And Rad, if we were to go to 5, who would you add?
I would be okay with that.
Okay.
Kevin, this is Wendy.
Yep.
What is just wanting to stick the procedure, in terms of what was charged, what the search committee was charged with, and I'm hoping that maybe Karen has the information there. I don't think there's any issue with the BOG regulations of how many go to the board, other than I think it has to be at least 3. I don't know if there's more, but I guess the other thing I just think about is, was the search committee charged with submitting 4 names, or was it at least 4
No,
names, or what, to make sure that we're doing our job and not just pass off the difficult choices, I guess.
I believe, Wendy, the search committee, we've closely followed the BOG regulation, just saying that we would submit at least what the BOG regulation required, but not a ceiling on any number. Bella?
Just a couple of comments. In terms of just the number of candidates, I know the majority of our responsibility is done after today, but I worry that if we were to bump the number from 4 to 5, that the amount of meaningful interface and time that the Board of Trustees and other constituent groups on this campus would have with the candidates that we were really passionate about and really interested in could be minimized. So that's just a concern of mine. I also did want to take the opportunity to elevate Roger Thompson. While he did impress me on all of the answers that he provided, I was really impressed with his answer to my question about student success and putting your money where your mouth is. I was really impressed with that and kind of the examples he gave from his own campus. And on the other side of that, from student success on, what was Flores' first name?
John.
John, thank you. And since we're getting into the nitty-gritty, I wasn't as impressed as I hoped I would have been. I further questioned him regarding the student fee issue he brought up pretty early on in the questioning. And I know on this campus, we obviously cannot raise student fees just because of the legislature's rules on that, but there has been reallocation of fees and who the burden falls on every single year, and that has been a reoccurring issue on this campus, that more and more of the burden is falling on students for services that really it's in the best interest, and in my personal opinion, the responsibility of the university to provide for the well-being of the student and the entire holistic student experience. So that really did concern me.
Mac?
My first vote is we go with 5 candidates, but if we agree that's maybe not the best logistics, a couple of points I wanted to emphasize. Paul raises a really good issue that this president will have the opportunity to select a provost. I think that's huge. I think Lori even pointed that out early in the process. It's very unique. They can always fire somebody, I guess, but this is big because they can fill that academic gap that perhaps the faculty feels is not quite there. I would tell you, Thompson really struck me, his well-rounded personality, and I agree with Flores. I think if you got to know him better, took him out, played golf, had lunch, you get to know him, but this is an important job where first impressions are everything. And I'm sure we're not the first group he ever had to sit in front of. You know, it can be intimidating, coming in here, 12 people staring down on you. I understand that can make you a little tight, but I think the caliber of the person we need is somebody that can come in and exude their personality fairly quickly after sizing up the audience, especially knowing you may only get one shot at it in this case. So I'm just saying I'm cool with 5, but if we have to go with 4, to me, Thompson edges it out because I think he's so collaborative in his attitude and his charisma. He can appeal to a lot of audiences to build consensus and get things approved.
All right. So are we comfortable moving? Yeah. Adam?
Would it be out of order for me as a Board of Trustees member to make a comment about 4 versus 5, not the candidates themselves, just a process point?
Probably so. Yeah, just because we need to keep it within the search committee at this point.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Well, let's see if we can get it to 4.
Yeah, well,
Let's
okay.
start there.
Well,
maybe we can. I don't.
well, it seems like we're down between the difference of Thompson or Flores. Are we agreed on that? Okay, and then I think the question is, do we want to go 4 or 5? So what I will make the motion, even though the chair is not supposed to. I would move elevating Thompson to the left-hand side with the understanding that I am not ruling out the question on the 5th vote. Because it seems like we have a general consensus on Thompson, and then the question would be, do we elevate Flores as well? Are we comfortable with that? All right.
Good start.
Are you comfortable?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I'm suggesting at this point. The chair can't technically make a motion. Now everyone, folks, it's time to make a choice here.
Would you like a motion? Because I'm happy to make a motion to that effect. I like that idea. I don't know if you're going to give me a second or not, but I'll make that motion. I would support moving Thompson to the left side and then come back and discuss Flores.
Yeah. Wendy, what Max just moved is to move Roger Thompson to the elevated left-hand column, and then we're going to have a further discussion as to whether to add a 5th, and if a 5th person is added, it would be Dr. Flores. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is everyone comfortable with that? We would be, if we do this, we would have 4. And then the question is 5. But Rad and Radha, tell us your thoughts on that.
If we have a motion and a second, then certainly we'll vote in the public domain here. Again, I think Thompson has a lot of strengths in a lot of areas. I think that the depth in the academic side of the house will continue to be an issue with the faculty. And with the point about hiring another provost, one of the first things that this person will do is hire a provost, for which we want someone who has an understanding of the academic side of the house in order to hire someone that kind of can put their arms around that.
Okay. Brad?
Well, let's have a vote, and I guess. I don't know that I have any comments to add. Thanks, Radha.
I just want to agree with Radha. I think what she said is really true. I feel pretty strongly about that. I thought Dr. Thompson was lovely. I just don't think he's right for the job right now.
Can I ask Lori a question? Because she made a comment yesterday that resonated with me. I think it was yesterday morning. Somebody asked you, we were talking about another candidate who was not a provost, but was a VP of Student Affairs, I think it was. And I heard you make a comment, correct me if I'm wrong, that oftentimes you will see that progression for this size university. Did I get that wrong? Or again, I'm trying to address this concern over his lack of not being a provost or a...
Sure. I wouldn't necessarily say often. I think what I was indicating is we have been involved in searches where VPs that are coming from other parts of the university that maybe don't have all of the academic credentials from the standpoint of what a provost would bring to the table are moving into presidential roles, because presidential roles tend to be much more externally focused from that perspective. One thing I would say to you is, because you don't have an expertise in an area doesn't mean you can't hire somebody really, really good in that. Most presidents don't have an expertise in all of the different areas of a university, but if you can identify talent, that tends tends to be a trait that's important of a leader, right, regardless of your skill set from that perspective. So is it a trend that we're seeing? It is becoming more of a trend. We're seeing it happen more often. We've been involved in searches where ultimately the board have made those decisions from that standpoint in the student, more on the student side, so the student enrollment, student services, student life component of that.
I'm sensing that maybe people are truly more comfortable with 5.
This is Judy. I'm more comfortable with,
Stop me and just fill me in because I can't hear all the comments that this has already been answered. Please stop me. But Lori, I'm just wondering, is there? It sounds like we have 3 or 4 candidates who we think, at least 3 that everybody has consensus on, and perhaps 4. Is there a danger that any of those would not come because we're now looking at 5 as opposed to 4, and they're weighing the risk that's involved for them? I just want to know whether adding that extra person, does that involve a risk of us losing any of the others?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I will tell you the reality of it is the bigger risk was when you picked 12. So when you picked 12 to come in for this round, that did give pause to people saying, oh, they've picked 12. That's really a lot. Normally it's 8 to 10, but we went with 12. So, but we were able to, to get them to come from that perspective. I don't think it will be a deterrent if you went to 5, and that's my personal opinion based on the knowledge of these. But I will tell you, I'm never 100% comfortable that everyone will accept the offer to come. And so, I want to emphasize that from that perspective. So oftentimes, they will take this first round, they'll do more due diligence, and then they'll come back and potentially say, at this point, my president has said to me, please don't go. I've gotten back to campus. They have offered to, a commitment and asked me to make a commitment and offered. So that's always our concern, is that I never can 100% assure you that, if you picked 4, that all 4 would show up. If you picked 5, all 5 would show up from that perspective as well.
Matt,
I don't think it'll impact it.
Yeah. Matt, can I offer a friendly amendment to your motion that we go to a pool of 5, which would include Floros and Thompson? And then if we can work with staff to determine how that's going to work logistically, we will figure it out. Because it seems to be there's a equally strong consensus for both Dr. Thompson and Dr. Floros, with very different arguments for both. Well, I mean, do we?
Yeah, I'll accept that amendment to my motion.
Okay.
So we need a second.
Yeah.
a second.
Okay. We haven't taken formal votes. Is everybody comfortable with that? Do we have consensus as a committee on that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. And for purposes of discussion, because Lori's going to be contacting these individuals, I think the message of going to 4 to 5 is that we viewed all the candidates extremely well qualified, and one of our beliefs about these remaining candidates is that each and every one of them is extremely well qualified, and that's why we are at 5 as opposed to 3. Is that a fair summary of the committee's views?
I absolutely agree with that. I think we probably should have mixed up the names there and not had numbers there, because I think right now what we've done is focused on the positives that we see in these candidates, and we've put those out. I think that when we look at the candidates, there'll be a more thorough vetting and getting to know them in the full day and a half. And in that case, some other questions may come up, and we'll get a little closer. And I think it'd be fair to have sort of this mix of backgrounds that we have.
Sharon?
And to that point, I think it's really critical that the board gets feedback from all the constituent groups, because we're having it here, but we need to make sure that we hear candid feedback from all the constituents on all of these candidates and make sure that that's part of this process.
And I think what's also important, and I think your comment about the numbers is a good one, but I will just make the content, we elevated people. So, Mac, you went first. That doesn't mean that the person that went first is the preferred candidate of everyone on this committee from that perspective. And it just meant that you're the first person that raised your hand from that perspective. So I think we're okay there, and I think that's the message that you have to send. Absolutely. That the process in which we created here was not to vote and was not to create, here's our first, second, third, and fourth choice. We didn't do rankings, and I think that's important, and that'll be important to candidates as well as they consider, this next step.
Yeah, and just so that that we're very clear, the BOG regulation says that we are to present unranked candidates. And I want to make sure that we are comfortable as a committee that we are fulfilling our mission under the BOG regulation, which is to present a number of candidates, but in an unranked order, so that when the Board of Trustees considers the candidates, that we are not making any ranked recommendation of those. Are we all comfortable with that? Okay. Rhonda?
I just wanted to follow up on Sharon's comment about getting feedback from all the constituencies on this candidate. And it's known in the public, and it's been announced that the Faculty Association will meet tomorrow, and that will be another venue for feedback from that constituency.
Okay. Which can be transmitted next week. Okay. All right. Are we all comfortable? Well, guys, we started this in April. And I just want to thank everybody for the time and energy that went into this, the level of preparation. I will never forget the day that Paul McElroy showed up wearing his Irma Drenched shirt, trying to get our power on so he could convene the meeting of the job description committee. I mean, I point to that example. Everyone has had levels of dedication to this process in the same way. And even though our work as a search committee is done, please do not leave this process. I know that those of us who are on the Board of Trustees want your continuing input, need your continuing input. Our goal is to get the very best president, and we are getting there. We will hopefully accomplish this on February 16th. Anything further?
I have.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Karen will make sure that this committee will have full information.
Karen, Mr. Chair, I just have one comment. We thank the committee, but I want to thank the staff and a round of applause, because without you guys, it wouldn't happen. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank Parker and Associates as well for all their work. Thank you.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Friday schedule? Should we just replicate it and move? I'll have to move the board.